Hello everybody, Brian Engelman here. I want to talk about what's going on today. Congressman Steve Scalise of Louisiana was shot. They were having a Republican fundraising. It was a charity baseball game. And there was a guy, a homeless guy, had some run-ins. He's been arrested before. I'm not going to say his name. It's not important to ever hear about any of these demons' names that decide to go become mass murderers. I think that's something that the media moving forward, I think that's something we should do. We can talk about the person as being a creep, being an animal, being a demon, being a monster. We don't need to use their name. So that's one takeaway from this. I did see a video attributed to Noah Nathan, who was on the ground when it was happening, was recording, and he had his dog with him, and all of the shots, all of the gunfire that was erupting around him, it just makes you realize just how long one of these active shooter situations can last, how long it takes. There's that phrase, when seconds count, police are only minutes away. This is a situation where, as Rand Paul pointed out, because Steve Scalise, I think he's the number 3 ranking Republican, he had a special security detail. So for that reason, he actually had some people there to help him, and it still took a long time. 4 people were shot, hearing that everybody's going to make it. But here's the point. Whatever we're hearing right now, calm down, slow down. Perhaps best articulated today in a post I saw from John Correa. He's been on our program a few times talking about ASP, Active Self-Protection. He runs that website. You got to check it out, subscribe. Active Self-Protection on YouTube. Great channel, teaches self-defense techniques, and you go through all these shootings and situations, and you learn lessons, things, what can we take away from this? What can we learn? So, he said, remember everybody, let's keep a 72-hour rule in place. Let's not, and now I'm going to paraphrase, but really just before we run our mouths about a lot of stuff, let's just soak up some information before we jump to conclusions. I think that's very important in most of these developing stories, these breaking stories. When I was doing a lot of the news segments, the weekly shows with Blake Wally when he was joining us on Agree to Disagree, I remember there were a lot of times there were these breaking stories and situations that were happening, and we were deciding, all right, we're going to tell you what's going on, just the bare bones, and we'll get back to you once we figure it out, once we sort through it all. So let's not get too bent out of shape just yet. Let's not jump to too many conclusions just yet. But a few takeaways. I took down some notes on some of my thoughts in no particular order here. Once again, another person that we are covering, Seth Rich, the Seth Rich story, apparently worked on the Hillary Clinton campaign, was found dead in a very suspicious attempted robbery, although nothing was taken from him. The stories that are coming out on his killing are that he was a Bernie Sanders supporter, and he was really frustrated that there was fraud in the Hillary Clinton campaign, and so he leaked information to WikiLeaks that for some reason the media and the Democrats are still blaming on Russians for some reason, when it was a Bernie Sanders supporting socialist or Democrat or Marxist or communist, whatever I don't know, labels don't do it for me anymore, whatever you are, whatever he was. But allegedly this shooter, this monster, this demon, this guy today in Alexandria, Virginia, was a very big Bernie Sanders supporter. So Bernie Sanders did the right thing. He came out on the floor of Congress and he talked about it and denounced violence. But it just kind of has me thinking thinking about the point: does socialism, communism, Marxism, do these things always end up in violence? Do these ideologies always devolve into the lowest common denominator, to violence, intimidation, or threats of violence and intimidation from a government that has the power to lock you up into a cage like an animal? Here at the New American Media, we can have a lot of opinions, differing thoughts, where we can agree to disagree. That's fine, but it's something we want to think about moving forward. If your ideas are so good that you need force to enforce them, how good are your ideas? So, a couple other thoughts here. Yeah, the officers on the scene shot back, but it just reminds me, any one of us can be in a situation where we have to be the first responder. We're going to be somewhere. It changes you. I had a pit bull attack occur in my neighborhood in Los Angeles shortly after I moved in here. bad situation. I'm not going to go and retell the whole story, but the brass tacks version of it is that 3 pit bulls got loose and they were running around the neighborhood hunting and killing things. They ripped the throat and entrails out of my neighbor's dog in my front yard. Her screaming, you know, an elderly lady. I ran out to help, and I had flip-flops and a telephone. The dogs were gone at this point. I called 911, and then myself and another neighbor got chased into the next building as the dogs showed up again with blood in their mouths, hunting again, triangulating around me, and somebody out in the street in a car, you know, distracted them, clapped a few times, and got the dogs to turn around long enough for me to run inside. So once I gathered my breath and knew I was safe, I went back to my place, I got my gun, and then I went through the neighborhood, kept it in its container. I kept it, you know, hoping, praying to God I never had to use it, but if I did, that my aim would be steady, and my sights would be clear. You know, it was horrible, because it took an hour and 45 minutes for an authority figure to show up, because there were pit bulls actively killing things in my neighborhood, like right in front of me in my yard. Almost 2 hours. I had to be the guy in case these pit bulls attacked an elderly man or an elderly woman walking back with groceries from the market, or a kid coming back from school, or somebody jogging around the neighborhood. I had to be the guy to wait on scene until help arrived. And I don't like that. But that is the reality of the London Bridge, of an Ariana Grande concert. Not even inside the concert, outside the concert, outside of sporting events. Farmers markets, Times Square. You see this all over the place. With social media, I hate to say it, but this is the new reality. This is the new thing that you have to be prepared for. This is the new thing you have to have a game plan for. So, you know, I think it's high time that we reverse all these draconian, what I believe to be illegal, restrictions on our right to self-defense. Our ability to carry firearms, handguns, self-protection, self-defense, wherever we are. Yeah, I understand there's a few exceptions that I could, you know, probably be okay with, and especially if you're going to be one of those first responders, militia, whatever you want to call the first person on the scene in case of emergency. Yeah, you should be sober. You should have your wits about you. Do the best you can. But I think everybody in this world has a right to self-defense, and when you watch this video from Noah Nathan, you just watch, he's there, he's on his own, you know. So many shots are ringing out, and you're just a sitting duck. You're helpless. I hate when people are sitting ducks, and I'll drop the word hate. I'm trying to turn a new leaf and be more positive, but I really want fewer people to be sitting ducks, you know. But you know, in the animal kingdom, if you got claws, if you got teeth, if you got a stinger, you know, it makes you a little bit less likely to get messed with. And, you know, the firearm is also the fire extinguisher. We should just get rid of guns. Cool. Where's your magic wand and I'll sign up? That ain't happening. So until that happens, the only thing that will ever stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Period. Remember that. A couple of other thoughts here. Yeah, good thing they came out and said the game's tomorrow at 7:05. The show must go on, the game must go on. Good. All these horrible things happening, don't ever get afraid. Don't ever let this get inside of your skull and change who you are. Don't live your life afraid. Be prepared, but there's no reason to be scared when you're prepared. Once again, back to the Second Amendment, which is why places like California that want to limit your right to have a concealed carry weapon, this, that, and the other, all the restrictions on clips, magazines, you know, magazines rather, come on. There's no reason to be scared when you're prepared. And places that are going to try to take that away from you, take that ability of self-defense away from you to protect your friends and your family, it's time to reject that completely, thoroughly, get the Supreme Court decision to go universal and overturn all this stuff. Yeah, the 66-year-old guy from Illinois, several shot, none dead, the annual congressional baseball game in Alexandria, Virginia, blah, blah, blah. Rand Paul was there. You know, just, you know, he brought up that point, like I said, if it hadn't been the third highest ranking Republican, there wouldn't have been security there. So what would have happened? What kind of, they were all, I've heard many people saying this would have been a bloodbath if there weren't people shooting back. Yeah, it changes you when you're in one of these situations, whether it's a pit bull in your front yard or I was in a big gathering, and there was a shooting, and it turned into a stampede, and we had to run into a restaurant, then run into the kitchen, and then outside the back door of that kitchen, then down an alley, then into another restaurant's kitchen, and then into there. It just it changes you. Don't let it scare you, but it reminds you, it wakes you up, and it lets you realize that this world is something that you need to have a game plan for unlikely situations. You know, I was a Boy Scout. Be prepared. That's a good lesson we could all learn here. Yeah, so 4 shot, none dead. Don't name the demon. Yeah, Seth Rich and the shooter, what do they have in common? Both very upset Bernie Sanders supporters. Just something to note. I'm not going to jump to too many conclusions there, but I am asking about the value system of communism, socialism, and Marxism and all that stuff that want to force you and tell you how to live. There's dangers there. So anyway, I'm going to stop it for now because, like I said, just want to give you the facts, want to tell you what's going on. Very happy that, at least as of now, nobody's died, and I'm very grateful for that. I hate seeing casualties, loss of life, but, you know, you idiots out there that are going to do, you're going to have plays where you're assassinating Donald Trump, and you're calling for this kind of violence. I think it's time that we look in the mirror a little bit. I think this amped up Russian rhetoric, that's pretty nonsensical, by the way. I think there's real world consequences to the nonsense that we're spewing. And I think we should defend our freedom and liberty at all costs. All costs. I think we should be... I'm fairly libertarian. I think that we should be able to live our lives as we deem fit, as long as we're not harming other people. It's a pretty basic tenet of what I believe, and I think a good way to run a society. But all of this stuff over Trump since January, I'm sorry, since November, rather, since the election, it's been out of control. I know there was plenty of backlash over, you know, plenty of people don't like whatever president's going to be there. You know, there's that phrase, I'm already against the next president. Very fair. But what I've seen out of this anti-Trump rhetoric and the violence and the threats and the intimidation and the so much of it trying to go after sponsors of people that don't have your political point of view, it just goes on and on and on, and it's kind of ridiculous. We need to be better than this. We can agree to disagree. We can have differences of opinions. And not everything is a high crime and a misdemeanor, folks. Sometimes it's just a different opinion. So let's agree to disagree and not be jerks and kill people. But if someone's going to bring a problem to the party, I would like to have as many people stopping it as quickly as possible. Because to repeat myself one more time, when seconds count, police are only minutes away. Much love and respect to all the law enforcement officers that are out there doing a good job and not abusing their power. And it's just a time factor. You know, so reevaluate your strategy, protect your loved ones, your friends and family. Prayers to all those who were impacted today. And let's just do a better job as a country. Okay? Talk to you soon. Peace.